is to give you guys a high-level overview of some sales tax issues with regards to farmers and ranchers. And I know a lot of you are probably thinking, wow, this is going to go really quick because farmers and ranchers are exempt from tax, aren't they? Well, that's actually a common misconception, and I think I actually had that discussion with somebody this evening already. Farmers and ranchers are not actually exempt entities. However, certain purchases that they make are exempt from sales tax. Basically, there are three categories of taxability for farmers and ranchers. There are certain purchases that are always exempt regardless of how you use them. There are certain purchases that are exempt only if you use them exclusively for agricultural purposes, and there are some purchases that are never exempt, regardless of if they are used on farms and ranches. So if we are growing crops and raising cattle and things like that, it's pretty obvious that we have an agricultural operation going on. However, there are certain activities that seem to be like they're kind of agricultural related. However, the IRS says, nope, these don't qualify for exemption under the agricultural rules. And so what activities are not exempt? Wildlife management and land conservation. Those purchases are not exempt under the agricultural rules. However, as we'll discuss in a minute, there are actually certain things that you can purchase tax-free if you are doing wildlife management activities. Maintenance and or operation of hunting and fishing leases, horse racing, horse boarding, trail rides, commercial fishing, dog breeding and pet kennels, home gardening. All of those do not qualify for exemption. If I want to purchase something tax-free, what do I need to do? I need to obtain an agriculture and timber exemption and registration number issued by the comptroller. You can go on the comptroller website, fill out their form online and submit it, or you can print it out and fill it in by hand and mail it in. So once they issue that exemption number to you, whenever you want to make a tax-free purchase, you will have to issue an exemption certificate to the seller that includes your registration number on it. And basically, by giving that exemption certificate, you are certifying that you are purchasing those items for a tax-free use. Okay, so there are certain things that you can purchase tax-free, and you have to have the exemption certificate, basically fertilizers, fungicides, insecticides, machinery and equipment, including parts that are used in the production of agricultural products, and also if you're using them for building and maintaining roads or water supplies. Machinery and equipment used by an original producer for packing and processing ag products. Fencing, pens, and gates. Used to contain crops or livestock. However, general purpose fencing is not tax exempt. Components of an irrigation system that you're using to water your crops. Electricity can actually be tax exempt, but only if that particular electrical source is used exclusively for agricultural operations. You have to have it metered separately, and you can issue an exemption certificate to the provider, and they will not charge you sales tax on that. And you can go back and ask for a refund later if you find out that you've been paying tax on something that wasn't actually taxable. Services performed on any of the tangible property that I mentioned, the machinery and equipment, fences, pens, whatever. If you're having repairs made to any of these, the repairs are also going to be exempt. Certain off-road motor vehicles, if they're used in agricultural operations, and I'll get into that in a little more detail in just a minute. There are certain things that you can actually purchase that do not even require that you provide an exemption certificate. Horses, mules, and work animals. So if you're using horses to round up cattle, or if you're still doing farming the old-fashioned way and using mules to pull your plow, you can actually purchase those tax-free. Let's see, feed for farm and ranch animals and wildlife. This is one of those areas where I mentioned earlier that wildlife management is not considered to be an agricultural activity. However, if you purchase feed for wildlife and you're involved in wildlife management, you can actually purchase that feed tax-free. Seeds and plants that you grow where you're growing products for human or animal consumption are also tax-free. Certain items never qualify for exemption. If you're buying work clothing or home furnishings and housewares for your ranch hands or your ranch manager, can't buy those tax-free. Guns, ammo and traps, pet food, and certain taxable services such as real property repairs and remodeling, security services, and waste removal. Okay, so you're probably wondering about buildings and structures. Those can be some pretty large purchases. You don't want to pay tax on anything that you don't have to. So basically, if you have livestock barns, bunkhouses, machine shops, and things like that, those are not tax exempt, the materials for those. Repair and remodeling of non-residential real property are always taxable. So, and then also, if you have a special purpose structure that it was built specifically for agricultural purposes, it cannot easily be adapted to be used for any other purpose, you can actually purchase that tax exempt. I saw some examples on the comptroller website of like pullet houses and special milking barns and things like that. So if it couldn't be used for storage or for any other purposes, it's possible that you can purchase that tax exempt. Roads. Okay, so materials used to build the road are always going to be taxable. But labor to build the road is exempt, but only if you have a separated contract. If you have a contract that bills one price for labor and materials, the whole thing is going to be taxable. So you have an incentive. You may want to ask the contractor to break out that price between labor and materials. And labor to repair a road is taxable. So remember, labor to build it is exempt, but labor to repair it is going to be taxable. I get this question a lot on vehicles. Can vehicles be purchased tax-free? ATVs and off-road vehicles are generally subject to sales tax. However, they can be exempt from sales tax if they are used exclusively for agricultural purposes. And the key is that word exclusively. And if you happen to use them some for farming, technically that is not used exclusively for agricultural purposes, and therefore it should be taxable. Motor vehicles designed for on-road use are not subject to the sales tax. However, they are subject to the motor vehicle tax. The motor vehicle tax is very similar to sales tax. In fact, most people think it's the same thing. But they are generally not exempt, even if they have the farm plates on them. And the parts to repair them are also not exempt. However, farm machines, trailers, semi-trailers, they gave us a little bit of break on that one. They said you only have to use them primarily, not exclusively, for farming and ranch use. And the statute and the comptroller rules don't define what primarily means. However, the comptroller generally takes the position that it has to be at least 80% agricultural use in order for those to be exempt. Last thing, the motor fuels tax. You can actually get refunds of the motor fuels tax, or in some cases on diesel fuel, be able to purchase that tax-free. If you are purchasing gasoline for engines and off-road motor vehicles that are used exclusively for agricultural purposes, you can get a refund of the tax paid on the gasoline tax. Diesel fuel is kind of a different case. Basically, clear diesel fuel, if it's used for equipment and off-highway equipment, generally it's not eligible for refund. But if you purchase dyed diesel fuel that's used exclusively for agricultural purposes, you can actually purchase that tax-free. You actually have to file an application with the comptroller to be able to purchase it tax-free. Once they send you your letter back saying that you're approved, whenever you go to purchase diesel fuel, you can give that to your supplier, and they should not charge you tax on that.